Hey everybody, it's Spear here, and we are back with another tournament report. This weekend was Top Cut's 1.5 tournament, the first Bandai official 1.5 tournament since the release of this set. There were planned to be a couple beforehand last week, but unfortunately due to the accessibility of product, that got pushed into a 1.0 format. So at this point, it's been about a week since the release of this set, and this is the first big tournament with 256 participants. The event was totally capped and it was absolutely amazing. But before we jump into it, if you're looking for any of the cards I talk about in today's deck profile, I need you guys to go check out 3 Mana Inc. They have the best prices across Canada if you're looking for your Digimon singles or sealed product. And of course, if you guys want to watch me live, I did stream the entire tournament, guys. So if you guys want to see the entire VOD of my tournament run, it was a ton of fun. A link to the Twitch will be down in the description. I stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on weekends for tournaments. With that said, we'll jump right into it. And as you guys can see, I ran big old baddie Alter S. I spoke about how much I love Omnimon, right? Like the blue Omnimon deck I liked a lot. I just didn't play it all the time because I wanted to bring something fresh and new to the table, and I wanted to try and mix up the meta and not just be another blue Omnimon in the pile. So we played it differently, but I actually love the blue Omnimon deck. The way it plays, you play the biggest, baddest thing in the game. And now with Alter S, Red Omnimon gives us the ability to play both of the biggest, baddest things in the game, and Red Omnimon, and honestly, the deck is really strong. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into the deck list, and then we can talk about my matchups, which I want to say, this boy hit top 16, which was absolutely amazing. I want to thank everyone who was there with me on stream for the support, giving me the energy I needed to really push all the way through. So when we're looking at the deck list, the big inspiration came from Steven's. I tend to take Steven's deck list just because he's played these older formats, right? Whereas I haven't. 1.5, which is effectively set 3 for Japan, is all fresh and new to me. So I'm not going to start with nothing. I'm going to start with a skeleton that works, go from there. And we did make a few changes. So first off, I'm playing Koromons. That's just because I don't have any Digimons. I'm still waiting for my 1.5 bucks, at which point I'll have my commons and uncommons to be able to fill up those slots. But for now, we are running the Koromons. Most of the time, they're just as good. They're just worse when it comes to actually wanting to attack over things on board with your ultimates or champions, which does happen enough that GG is probably the better pick. I wouldn't really argue that one way or another. Of course, we're running our 2-cost rookies between Mondramon and Biomon. We're running our Agumon for that powerful 1k inheritable. And however, we are the new inclusion in 1.5 for Red Omni is this Biomon. 3 cost to play, 0 to Evo. On deletion, gain 1 memory, and this is such a sweet card. Being able to extend and do your big plays. Oftentimes, if your opponent chokes you out at 1, you can crash into their security with Biomon. It takes away 1 security, which is great. You know, we're trying to kill our opponent at the end of the day. And then go from there, we get the 2 to be able to go into Phoenixmon, and then go into either an Alter S or an Omnimon. So it really gives us the options to extend our plays if we do anything. Then, of course, we have our champions. We have 4 Dark Tyrannos, 4 Cores, and we have 3 Greymons for that security attack +1. Security attack +1 is so sweet in this deck, especially since oftentimes you don't want to go into Omnimon right away because you don't want the tempo swing of your opponent having much memory to maybe counter answer. So having security attack +1 on your megas is so good. It is absolutely key to the strategy. So while I do think Greymon is a flex spot in this position right now, I would reminisce not having him in the deck in some form or another. Now our ultimates is where we deviate a little bit from what Steven had in his own list. We have 4 Groundramon, 2 Lavos, 2 Skull Greymons. And the reason I prefer the 4 Groundramons over the Lavos is just because I think in a position where I'm behind or I'm forced to hardcast, I would so much rather give my opponent 5 than 7. 7 can push him all the way to insane amounts of strategy, whereas at 5, if I was at 1, it gives him 4. It doesn't give him like a full Omnimon if I'm playing in the mirror or something like that. So it really helps mitigate the amount of plays my opponent can make if I'm stuck in a tough position. Don't get me wrong, the 8k is super sweet, and if you can stack that with a couple of inheritables, he can become a 9k with like security attack +1. That's actually a pretty decent attacker, and 8k is really good at punching over blockers or controlling the board. So I do love Lavo. I just appreciate the ability to hardcast ground more. And the 2 skulls are just tech. The ultimate techs in red aren't amazing. You could play any number of Skull Greymons or Metal Greymons that actually are pretty decent, but they're not amazing in any front, and I could see myself replacing them. For now, it's just good spot removal that, you know, it's there. Then we have our Megas with 2 Volks, 3 Blitz, 3 Phoenix. The 2 Volks are really sweet, especially since we can Evo into them for the security attack +1. He's not a great attacker, mind you, he's really not a good attacker. Just because being at 10k and potentially 11k with your Agumon, maybe 12, you know, once he hits 12, if you have a Koromon and Agumon, then he's actually a half decent attacker. But 11 and under is still so susceptible to so many things in the game right now. He's really not that good of an attacker. So I wouldn't recommend attacking with him, but if you have to, sometimes you just gotta push it. Against Rookie Rush, he's still really good. You know, mind you, not as insane. Rookie Rush does go bigger now, and they have cards that don't get hit by Volk, but they still have enough that you can 2, 3 for 1 your opponent from time to time, especially when you combo that with Ultra S. Then we have Blitz Greymon, of course, one of the most powerful Mega Red has access to right now. It does cost 4, which is quite a bit to Evo, but you get to Digivolve by 2. He's a big, powerful, beefy, piercing attacker, which combos really well when you're running things like Greymon to give security attack +1. You just chill on him, you remove your opponent's tempo, and then they have to bounce back and try and reestablish their stack while you're just punching it. And then of course Phoenixmon, we got our cheap vanilla Mega to be able to give us a very quick access Omnimon if we needed to. Otherwise he's just a 12k beater. Hey, 12k is sweet, especially when we combo with a Koromon or an Agumon. Then he's at 13k. Now he dies to almost nothing aside from some perfect level Digimon, which, mentioning the perfects, we are running 3 regular Omnimons and 2 Ultra S's. Now honestly, this is kind of a meta call. The ratio really depends on, do I expect to see more go wide decks? Then I should run the 3rd Ultra S as opposed to regular Omnimon. Do I see more go tall decks? Or do I see the meta benefiting me for being a more proactive attacker? Because you do get dual attack with your first Omni swing, well, then go ahead and play the regular Omni. At that point, it's a meta call. You could go down to 4, 2, 2 of each. That'd be acceptable as well, but you really do want to see Omnimon in this deck. And I think being as consistent as you are, it really helps being able to push going into your perfects as much as you can. Then we have our non-Digimon. We have 3 Gaia Forces. The Sacrilege, he's not playing 4. Yeah, I don't think the deck needs 4. You have so much powerful removal in the form of Skull Greymon, in the form of Volk, in the form of your 2 perfects. You have so many different forms of removal that Gaia Force can get clunky. There have been a number of games when I was playtesting it before where I'd have like all 4 Gaia Forces in hand, and that feels so bad. I think, sure, not having 4 means you see one in security less often, but I do think that benefit is worth it when you consider not clunking up your hand to a point where you can't really play the game and actually put pressure on your opponent because you just have answer cards in your hand. Then we have the biggest change in the deck is a Tai Kamiya. I think, and I've talked to a lot of red players, and you guys, I might do a video where I bring in a bunch of red Omni players from this past tournament and we give our thoughts about the decks. And I think something that everyone came into an agreement with was that this deck really wants a memory tamer, and that front, Tai is amazing, especially since oftentimes you are a deck that goes all the way to the top of your stack, and giving your Mega security attack +1 is super key. You tie that with a Greymon and that security attack +2, which is amazing. So we did run the 1, and that's where I replaced the Gaia Force. I want to run a 2nd. I think 2 Memory Tamers is definitely where this deck wants to be, just so you can see them. They help a lot because you can play the choke game. Your deck is running 1 cost and 2 cost Evos, which means you can go back and forth on the choke game with your opponent, but it's really annoying to do, and the deck benefits so much from being able to do 2 Evo turns. And the topping on the cake is that you can go into Blitz Greymon and leave your opponent at 1, which is amazing. It means that they have so little room to make counterplay. So I love Tai, and I really want to play a 2nd because I loved every time I was able to get him out on board. But that's basically the deck, guys. A really powerful, solid strategy that is super consistent. Honestly, like, I think Red Omnimon has the best matchups across the board. Sure, it has some fidgety matchups here and there, but at the end of the day, I think if you take the deck, not knowing the field, you have a good chance of winning against almost everything you face against. With that said, talking about the things we face against, we can go ahead and talk about our matchups. First round, we got a no-show. I am incredibly lucky, but at the same time unlucky with the fact that my first round's a no-show. We'll take the dubs. A win's a win. But it does suck for the stream that now we're just sitting there for an hour just watching everyone else play. But with that first win under our belt, we go into round 2 where we end up playing against Rookie Rush. Rookie Rush is insanely powerful in 1.5, guys, even more so than 1.0, even more annoying just because now they have Vmon and XVmon in their back pocket, meaning they have jamming attackers, and also XVmon means that basically any attacker they have that survives, which, hey, their jamming attacker is going to survive 99% of the time, then they have the ability to go into XVmon and attack twice, which means you have to be really careful about how you defend, because if you don't block the right thing, they could put you in a situation where they restand what they just attacked with, and now they have more attackers than you are counting on board, and you may have just lost. But with that said, Red has a bunch of tools to mitigate the aggro. You have Volcanic Dramons, you have Alter S, which put in a ton of work. You can basically, 3-for-1, 4-for-1 your opponent if you do Alter S appropriately. And here's just really make sure you find your blockers, make sure you find your answer cards, hope you can get there. But Rookie Rush can definitely still break under you, because guess what? If you don't see your answer cards, you're pretty much dead in the water, because their tempo will out tempo you 9 times out of 10, especially since they have Hammer Spark to make your life hell. The amount of Hammer Sparks I hit against Rookie Rush in their security is insane. I think I hit it 3 to 4 times to end my turn, which is absolutely soul crushing. If you hit a Hammer Spark in security, it typically is game over, because they just gained way too much momentum in being able to get an extra turn where you weren't able to put pressure, put up your defenses, or remove anything that they had on board previously. Then we played against Black, which O2'd us. Honestly, I don't think the score is representative of the matchup. While this deck was super sweet, it was basically a level 7 turbo deck, but I wouldn't call it turbo because you don't have the pieces to go into it really quickly. But he used all the Ragnar Lordmon inheritables from the weapon arms with just good level 7s in the form of Millenniumon and Alter S. And it was super powerful. It was, once he got board control, it was absolutely insane. And I believe he got all the way to top 16 as well with the deck, which is absolutely awesome to see a Black deck go all the way. So huge shout out to him. But I will say, I don't think it was representative. Like game 1, I hard casted my megas like 3 times. So obviously I bricked hard, and then he was able to just go into Millenniumon over and over and over again to prevent me from playing. And then game 2, I had a great board, but I couldn't find a mega to save my life. So I saw them too early game 1. Game 2, I didn't see them at all until 9 turns in. And the thing with Red Omnimon is that until you go into a mega, your deck really isn't doing anything. I could have aggroed him, but he had blockers that I couldn't kill, which means I was just losing bodies over and over and over again. So, but at the end of the day, just not finding my megas was my death spot. At the end of the day, not taking anything away from my opponent. They played well, they played a strong deck, and they top 16 as well. So huge congrats to them. But I will say, I think if we didn't break as hard, I think it would have at least been a 1-2. But with that said, we go into our 4th round, 2-1, and here we play against Blue Imperial Dramon. Blue Imperial Dramon, guys, is super good. I know a lot of people put in like tier 1.5 when they're talking about deck lists. I think with the bannings that are coming at the end of the month, Blue Imperial Dramon is definitely strong enough to be a tier 1 deck. It attacks a bunch of times. It can put a bunch of pressure. It can play the Rookie Rush game if it wants to. It is actually insane. Going from your ultimate to Imperial, you're attacking 3 times with a big beefy jamming body every single time. Like, it's a lot of attacks. It puts in a lot of work, and it's just, it's tough, guys. Like, I'm gonna tell you, Blue Imperial Dramon is a super solid deck. That said, we were able to find all our answer cards. Between regular Omnimon, Alter S, you can really mitigate both their go wide strat and their go big strat, which really helps out in the matchup, and we were able to seal that away 2-0. In the red mirror, I hate the red mirror. The red mirror is very, like, you just end up protecting your stack in your breeding area until the first one shoots it off, and then you just kind of go back and forth seeing who has the most answers, and the one who has the most answers typically wins. So I don't like the mirror at all. Like with most decks, I don't like the mirrors because I play the degenerate decks, and degenerate decks versus degenerate decks is not a good time. So I'm not gonna lie, the red mirror is really tough and really annoying, especially since Blitz Greymon can put a ton of work in the mirror. And this is one of those matchups where I think Ty is amazing, because if you can choke your opponent out while you yourself getting 3 memory every single turn, it absolutely turns the tide. And like, that's really where it shined here. Ty put in so much work in this matchup. It was absolutely insane. Then we went into another Rookie Rush, 2-1ing our opponent. This one was really close. Puppetmon still puts in a ton of work. It can shut you down, and there's not much you can do against it. We were really lucky, though, in being able to prevent our opponent from really winning out. He Puppetmoned us. We were able to double Omni to clear his entire board and take the game from there. And on the 3rd game of the match, if you're a Rookie Rush player, you guys got to be careful for this bait. Turn 1, I played a Phoenixmon, giving my opponent 10. He played out his entire hand, and then I Alter S'd his board, wiping out his entire board. The only thing he had left was his breeding area. You guys have to be careful about those lines of play that Red Omni have access to. It's really, really strong. It puts in a ton of it's a momentum play that, even though you can still get there afterwards, if you top deck really, really well, it's a really tough position to come back from. So you just kind of have to be careful that you might be being baited by your opponent if they're just dropping a huge mega on turn 1 when you're playing Rookie Rush. And Red Omni players, that's a play you can go for, because at the end of the day, if they play around it, they're just not going to play a ton of stuff, then great, you just gain momentum and you prevented their tempo. If they do play a bunch of stuff, then you just board wipe them and you like 5-6 for 1 them, which is absolutely amazing. Then we went against Blue Imperial again. Once again, our answer cards were able to get us there. We were able to find what we needed to find. But Blue Imperial still puts in a ton of pressure, guys. It's a strong deck. Honestly, if you guys want to play it, I recommend you do, because I like it a lot. I think it's a super sweet deck. I would even love to play this deck myself. And finally, to end our run, we played against another mirror. It was one of the viewers from the stream. Awesome guy. Honestly, I had a really great match. It was a fun time. At the end of the day, like I said, guys, it's just whoever finds the better answers. The matchup becomes, can you start putting pressure at enough point where your opponent is forced to answer? And then once they're forced to answer you, do you have the answers to go back and forth with them on it? And at which point, whoever's able to answer the other best, once you're done going back and forth on I omni you, I Gaia force you, I Gaia force you, I alter S, I board wipe. You know, can you go back and forth on that enough to a point where you're the one who ends up on top if you have to go back and forth over and over and over again. And then from there, just capitalize on your advantage, put pressure where you can, and close up the game quickly, because the longer the game goes, it really just ends up on who sees their answer best. So you really want to put pressure where you can. And that was our 8-round tournament, putting us 6-2 and having us finish in 14th place. And that was my tournament run, guys. It was an amazing tournament. Again, thanks to everyone at Top Cut, the judges, the TOs, the participants, and everyone who was there on the stream with me. It made for an absolutely amazing time. It was a great tournament. And set 1.5 is so fresh. The fact that I'm not playing against Blue Omni every single round feels so good. And mind you, guys, I didn't even play against everything that's in the meta. I didn't play against Green Ceresmon, which there were some in the tournament. I didn't play against Shine Greymon because I know there were Shine Greymons in the tournament. So all that said, I think the meta is in so much of a better place, and I'm so excited to take it even further and see where the meta goes from here, because there is so much space to explore and it's so much fun. Of course, guys, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Hey, if you dislike it, give it a thumbs down. We're going to be making more deck profiles. I'm going to be catching on some of the guys who played in the tournament. So if you guys want to see green deck profiles, you guys want to see yellow deck profiles of this tournament, subscribe button's in the corner. And with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.